and then you die.
Oh, lovely.
All my life, I needed SAB a lot more than SAB needed me. And for me to stand in front of you tonight to say goodbye to SAB is really not an easy job for me. 45 years with the company is a lifetime, and I'm entitled to have gone through the aging process. Not so funny. The first thing is you forget names. So I apologize if I'm calling everybody his and she's Boyke. Secondly, you forget faces. I apologize once again. Thirdly, you forget to zip up. And lastly, you sadly forget to zip down. I'm currently somewhere between 3 and 4. Now, I've always believed that a good speaker should never speak for longer than he can make love for. And when I started in corporate life, I used to speak for 40 minutes. Then towards the end, I used to speak for 3 minutes. And I admit tonight of having lied on both counts. A good speaker at my age has got nothing to do with sex. A good speaker shouldn't speak for longer than he can stand on his own 2 feet before he falls over. So please, Carol, watch me closely. Now, many of you don't know that I'm actually an intellectual. A very refined, subtle intellectual. And I still think of these essential questions in life. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Or why do bad things happen to good people? And then that famous Oosterrand who played front row for the Springboks for 10 years when he walked off the field during a test match and they said, "Wat mekeer Bos," that means what's wrong, Bos? And he said, "Ek is nou gat vol." Literally translated, that means my arse is now full. But figuratively it means I've had enough, I'm out of here. So I have actually 3 more essential questions. The one is, what am I doing here? Why did I accept this? And what am I going to say? And then it struck me. This cop arrives at this farmhouse in a burst of dust, jumps out of his car, and the farmer comes out. He says, "Ja, meneer." He says, "Ja, meneer." He says, "Listen," he says to the farmer, "we've got a suspicion you've been planting marijuana on one of your fields." For those of you that don't know, that's dagga. Our natural smoker. The farmer says, "No, man." He says, "Do you mind if I inspect your fields?" The guy says, "Sure, but don't go to that field near that fence." He says, "Listen, here, and he holds out his badge. He says, "You see this badge?" He says, "This says I can go where I want to, I can say what I want to, and I can do what I want to." So obviously the cop goes to that field first. 20 seconds later, this cop is fucking flying. His cat's gone, his dog's gone, and behind him is the biggest, ugliest, raging bull you've ever in your life seen. And the farmer is shouting, "Show him your badge! Show him your badge! Show him your badge!" I reckon tonight is all of us actually getting together on a voluntary basis, showing our badge of loyalty, love and respect for SAB. Now let me tell you that I'm a very superstitious kind of guy. And this deal had a very bad start as far as I'm concerned. I got a message after a horrible afternoon of golf where I punished myself for 18 holes to come home to find that Alan Clark had left a message for me to phone. And Alan hadn't phoned me in 3 years. So I immediately got pupil palpitations. Because this was not going to be good. So I dialed the number and somebody said, "Hello." I said, "May I speak to Alan Clark, please?" Huh? I said, "Alan Clark, please." Huh? Alan Clark, not on menu. What do you mean? I said, "Alan Clark's your managing director, man." Managing director, not on menu. You want to order, you want to order. I got through to McDonald's in May. So that was a bad start. Eventually, I got through to Alan, who told me about this pending deal and that AB InVet had made an offer. So, let me tell you how I feel about it. Not great. I mean it. I'm rich, but I was rich before. So yeah, you know, rich is rich. And all you lovely ladies, if you're ever looking for a sugar daddy, a bit of spending money, some intellectual conversation, some good music. There's that yodeler is very good. But that's about all I can offer. And the major shareholders, they've done a deal. Time will tell whether it was a good deal for them or not. But I can tell you that if I had still been in the saddle, I would have fought this with my whole being. And I can't speak for that. I can't speak for that, as well as I did as my partner for over 35 years. I think he would have fought with me, because we certainly didn't build SAB to see it chopped up and sold off. And the SAB they are buying is not the SAB rebuilt. SAB without Miller Coors, without snow, which I had hardly anticipated, without Grolsch, without Peroni, without Pilsner-Urquell, with all the nuisance value of what they've had to endure to get the South African business, is not the SAB we know and the SAB we love. But that's what it is, and that's the way it's going to be. And the fact of the matter is that when it comes to our major shareholders, blood is thicker than water, but money is thicker than blood. So there we have it. Okay. So now you're expecting me to tell you about all the good times we've had in SAB. But you never appreciate the good times unless you know about the bad times. So I'm going to take you into my confidence and tell you some about the bad times that people really aren't aware of. We grew up in SAB in an environment that was similar to the 10 biblical plagues. We had inflation at 25%, interest rates at 25%, sanctions. We had political unrest. We had our trucks burnt. We had labor trouble. And that hardened us, and through all that difficult period, SAB management continued to prosper for themselves and for their shareholders. And the examples of the guys right now, the fact that they did so well internationally is because the South African environment hardened them. Now let me also tell you that we invested in America long before you people know. We owned a brand called Rolling Rock and Sunny Delight. Now Sunny Delight was the so-called fruit juice. Yeah. The closest it came to a fruit was that once a year we put a bag of oranges in the back of the bucket and drive around the plant twice. And then we owed the banks $3 million. Then 5 million rand. And the banks called the loan because of sanctions. And nobody would help us. Zoe McFarlane and I got kicked out of the best banks in Europe for a piss-willy $3 million. And the same guys that used to bring me crunchkuchen from Austria when they came to visit South Africa, right, wouldn't allow us through the front door of their banks. But through some heavy drinking, deception, and a lot of luck, we managed to burgle $3 million. And whatever we got out of the sale of Sunny Delight and Rolling Rock was actually the start of our European expansion. Wow. And then I must also tell you, it was $150 million. We started with zip, foko. That's close to nothing. And we converted that into a piss pot full of money. We started the whole chain of events in Europe. And then we were always unloved in South Africa. It's amazing. I mean, everybody adored us outside of South Africa, but the South African government, when it was white and when it was black, just had the needle to us. We were the Hoffenheimers. We'd stolen the beer industry, as if 45 million South Africans then hadn't voted with their wallets and their throats for our beer. All we did was give them the best beers at the best prices, at the right times, and in large quantities. And for that we were guilty. We got punished. We got punished with excise. Can you believe it? I remember being called to the American embassy, South African embassy in America. South African embassy in America, and the then ambassador, who'd been a friend of SAB during what they called the struggle years, said to me that they're hugely embarrassed. Mr. Ambassador, why? He said, well, you know, Anheuser-Busch has been to see you. And Anheuser-Busch says that you've locked up the beer industry in South Africa. And we've discussed it in government, and we think that you should be prepared to distribute Anheuser-Busch beers in South Africa. That's what he said to me. I'm very refined. Very well mannered. And I'm very thoughtful, so I don't shoot from the hip. But what I did say to him, I said, Mr. Ambassador, you fucking man. Now, in fairness, that's not diplomatic language. And I'm told he's taken it quite well. It's been 7 years, and he's currently still on tranquilizers. But they say he'll be out before Christmas. And then, of course, some other stuff that we lived through on the bad days. You know that wine is allowed to be sold in supermarkets because nobody drinks beer with food. No. So if I catch any of you drinking beer with your food, you're in real trouble. And when we moved to the UK with our listing, Ali, you were talking about it, we were accused of being unpatriotic. It's as if we had broken our breweries down brick by brick, and we'd taken the bricks and moved them to London. We'd taken our trucks, our glass, our fridges, and moved them out of the country. And I mean, the mind actually boggles. And yet, every time those politicians appeared on the stage outside of South Africa, they applauded SAB for flying the South African flag. And then finally, that black day when Heineken pulled Amstel away from us after 40 years of holding hands and singing hymns. 9% of our volumes, 20% of our bottom line. Black days in our history. And yet I was always consoled because I knew that Heineken and Amstel hadn't built SAB. SAB had built Amstel. And what you make, you can break. And that's exactly what we did. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We've been an unbelievable success. I mean, just to position things correctly, the whole of South Africa's net reserves are $41 billion. All, everything, in total. And before the drop in the pound, the bid for SAB was $107 billion. So I'm not comparing apples with apples, but what I'm trying to do is just put down the equivalent base of the value that you together have created. I am proud to be part of your team. We've built a monumental business. We have made history from 2 Jan Smuts Avenue, Braamfontein, South Africa. We will go down in the annals of history for what we've achieved. And all of us will be affected somewhat by the conclusion of this deal. But I can tell you this much, all of you, no job in SAB was ever more important than any other job. And I need to thank you individually, you and your families, for what you've done for our patriotic SAB. It's a phenomenal performance, and I thank you for your contribution. So together, we've all made history, but that's yesterday's breakfast. That's finished, it's gone, it's cloud, it's complete. Right? Today is great because we're paying homage not only to the company, but to our colleagues in the business. What's far more important is tomorrow. And there's a tomorrow for everybody in this room. right? All you have to do is ensure that your successes tomorrow equal your successes of the past, and I would wish every one of you well into the future, and thank you for listening.